highly educated, okay? Number two, he was a brilliant military leader. He was a brilliant tactician. He didn't lose to the Persian army. He beat them at every battle. And within a short matter of time, he was able to conquer, a lot of land. All right, so educated, military genius. All right, a couple more. Oops, that's a map. That's that. Okay. He loved Persian culture, especially the Persian women. Okay, so he adopted all kinds of Persian stuff. Okay, I guess he was a little, I don't know, narcissistic, because all of the cities that he built, what did he name them? Alexandria, yeah. I mean, come on, there's at least, like, seriously, 100 cities called Alexandria in the ancient world, because they were all named after him. I know what you're gonna do. Okay. Why did he stop his conquests? All right. Yeah. His men refused. Okay. His men didn't want to go any further. All right. That's all you got to tell me. If you want to add, they've been gone for 10 years, but his men refused to go further. Okay. That's it. They had enough war. Okay. Don't need you to know how he died, just the fact that he did die, but what happened after he died, okay? You can say his empire fell apart, that's fine, but obviously for more points, his empire divided into 3 kingdoms. If you want to add, his generals fought for a couple years, that's fine, but his empire broke apart into 3 kingdoms, okay? The only one I expect you to remember is Egypt, okay? Who took over Egypt? Ptolemy, and yeah, if you can spell psychology or psycho, just remember there's a silent P. All right, there, ladies. Sir. Thank you. Okay. And if you can't remember the name, if you have a hard time spelling it, just put Cleopatra's ancestor or Cleopatra's great. Even I don't remember how many greats. Grandfather. Okay. If you can't remember Ptolemy, or if you can't spell it, or whatever, but just remember silent P. I'm not going to grade you on spelling. All right. But Cleopatra's ancestor. Okay. What is Hellenism? I will accept one of 2 answers. Number 1, if you just say the spread of Greek culture, boom, that's more than enough. Okay. Of course, specifically, it's not just the spread of Greek culture, but Greek culture mixing with local cultures. So if you add that, that's a little bit more accurate. But I will give you credit if you just say the spread of Greek culture, okay? But just know, if you continue taking more history and you study this in more detail, it's Greek culture mixing with local culture, okay? How does Greek culture affect the areas where Alex conquered? Oh, put it on silent. All right, number 1, and you can talk about any one of these things here, okay? Obviously, it changed their history. It affected their history. If you think of Rome, how they went back and changed their origin story because, they wanted to be like the Greeks, okay? Science, Greek scientists took scientific discoveries specifically from the Egyptians and the Persians, and were able to come up the Greeks and the Persians, thousands of years before, knew that the earth was round. They knew how big the earth was. They knew it wasn't the center of the universe. Whereas, fast forward to 1500, the Catholic Church was killing people for saying, no, the earth is not the center of the universe. So it affected science. It increased scientific knowledge. Remember, Greek philosophy begins to mix with local philosophy, okay? People begin to build, Greek-style buildings in, these random places like Egypt and Afghanistan and all of that. These areas adopted Greek theater. Any one of those things, okay? You tell me one or two of those things, that'll be great. But probably the most important one, what becomes the main language of education and culture? Greek. Okay, all of these areas adopt Greek as a language, okay? So like I said, you don't have to list all of them, but give me two, but especially the language one, okay? All right, let's see. I may have done this out of order. Oh, because it isn't just good stuff, okay? If you want to include some of the bad stuff, number one, Greek culture brought plantation slavery, all right? That's not to say that there wasn't slavery before, but remember that plantation slavery is literally just buying people to do the shit you don't want to do. All right. Whereas before I conquered Abbey City, Abbey was the best artist in the city. Now I have a slave artist who can just draw pictures for me all the time. Okay. But in this case, the Greeks came up with the idea of, I need someone to work and do all the hard stuff. So you, I'm just going to buy you, and that's what you're going to do. Okay. And of course, in the areas that the Greeks, affected, they brought that idea of using money, of using valuable coins or metals. All right, so if you want to throw that in, that too. All right, but like I said, you can throw in the one bad thing, I suppose. Okay, in this case, let's see. I want Judaism. Okay, how does Hellenism affect Judaism? Okay, you can talk about how the Jews resisted Greek culture. All right, but the one that I actually want is that the Jewish people who did accept Greek culture, what did they do with their scriptures? What did they do with their holy books? Translated them into Greek, all right? They went from Hebrew to Greek, okay? And then from then on out, everything that they wrote, including the early Christian writings, were all in Greek, okay? So number one, you can say most people resisted, but the people who did accept, they translated like all of the things that we now have, especially if you're Jewish or Christian, into Greek, okay? Moving away from that then, like I said, I had to cut out a couple of things. When it comes to India, okay, Asoka, one of the kings, if you recall, he's the one who conquered everything. He's the one who destroyed stuff and killed people. And so he felt so guilty. The major change that he made, adopted Buddhism. Okay, Buddhism becomes the primary religion of the area. Okay, thanks to Asoka. All right. Of course, eventually this brought the downfall of his empire because that whole peace and don't kill people and stuff like that. All right. Great for living your life. Not great if you're trying to maintain an empire. Okay. That's the only thing I want you to know about Asoka. Okay. The changes to Buddhism after they, where are you? That's not it. Like I said, I had to skip over a few. Some of the changes into Buddhism after they encountered the Greeks. Okay. Number one, people began to see Buddha as a god. Okay. Because remember, Buddha, what did he just consider himself? Didn't consider himself God or a god. He's just a teacher. Okay. What does Buddha mean again? The enlightened one. Yeah, it doesn't mean the God, all right? Just the enlightened one, okay? But after it mixes with Greek culture, people begin to see Buddha as a god, okay? We see some changes, all right? So that you don't have to give up all of the things. You can still reach nirvana if you take these alternate paths. So if you want to say alternate paths to nirvana, okay, because remember, we have a Greek guy here Sorry, Daniel. We have a Greek guy here. I mean, he doesn't care about life and death and rebirth and reincarnation. Yeah, he doesn't believe in any of that. So how am I going to convince him to convert to Buddhism? Well, we'll give him other ways to get to nirvana. All right, so there's alternate paths. Okay, there it was. Different opportunities to reach nirvana. Okay, what else does Greek culture do? You can say now we have literature that's based on, adventures of Buddha, all right? Or, the chronicles of the Buddha's life. So we get different stories that revolve around the Buddha. Obviously, some, if not most, are fake because they're being written a long time after Buddha, all right? But we get literature, okay? And of course, we begin to see images of the Buddha, okay? Now, these images are very specific, okay? Because whereas before, they used symbolic things, or like some other religions, like half man, half goat, whatever, thanks to Greek influence, what does Buddha look like? A human, yes. Okay, remember the Greek gods all had head, 2 arms, 2 legs, a body, all right? And so in this case, an actual figure, a human, all right? And that, if you can draw, I suppose you can try to draw this on your paper. Don't try to draw it on your paper, all right? But that's what he looked like, according to the Greeks, okay? Any one of those things, okay? The Silk Road, what was it? You should be able to describe and talk about the different things. Number one, obviously it wasn't like just a straight road. China to Greece, boom, all right? It wasn't an actual road that someone carved out. It was just paths that people had taken for a long time. So that's why you can say it was like a natural road or just little paths that people had taken. And so eventually more and more people took them, all right? It wasn't like some dude in China starts off and then 6 months later he's in Greece, okay, selling his stuff. But there were caravans, so it was large groups of people. They only went, short distances. You go to the next city, buy, sell, trade, negotiate. And then you go to the next city and then buy, sell, negotiate. Okay, so it wasn't like one shot, all right? Where's the rest? Okay, here we go. There were different cities along the way, you can call them caravan cities, but some of them, this is where you picked up your supplies. This is where you bought and sold and all of this other stuff, okay? What were some of the items? Well, why do we call it the Silk Road, first of all? What was the main item? Silk, yeah. So if you don't write that down, I swear to I will take at least 2 points off. All right, so silk. All right, silk was the primary item, but that wasn't the only thing. Here we go, okay? And you don't have to put all of these down, okay? Lacquer, hemp, linen, iron, different animals. Did I not write that up there? I thought I did. It was on another slide. Spices, okay? Don't forget spices, all right? So, and if you want to talk about, stuff, precious stones and jewelry, that's all included in this, okay? So that was going back and forth, okay? But at the very least, what's the one thing I want you to remember? Silk, yes, okay? We didn't call it the Lacquer Road, all right? We called it the Silk Road, okay? Although that would have been kind of a cool name, all right? Questions? Then turn the page. I wrote it down for you because, I don't know why I did. You should know that the Roman government was a republic. Okay? It's already there for you. I don't need you to explain to me what a republic is. Unfortunately, I had to drop those questions, all right, just for the sake of time. But just know that the Roman government was a republic. Where is it? Here it is, okay? Republic, okay? Now, you do need to know the Punic Wars. What do I want you to know about the Punic Wars? Number one, there was 3 of them. Okay? So how many were there?
3.
All right. Number 2, you need to know the opponents. Who fought? Rome versus Carthage. Okay? Yeah. Could we actually recreate it? Is there a city called Carthage here in New York? No? I thought there was. We do have Rome. And you're like, yeah, Santos, it's over there. All right, so one day we'll just get those 2 cities to fight. All right, so Rome versus Carthage. Okay? I don't need you to know any of the specifics other than Punic War number 2. All right, and that was the one with Hannibal. Okay? Who was Hannibal? Greatest military genius of Carthage. Okay? And you should know that he, what animal did he use to invade Italy? Elephants. Yeah, I was going to say giraffes, hippos. It was something African. Elephants. Okay? So, 3 of them, Rome versus Carthage. Hannibal was war number 2. Okay? How did the Roman military change after the Punic Wars? Okay? Rome began to expand aggressively. There's a couple things you can put down. Number 1, the military begins to expand aggressively. All right? If you just put aggressive expansion, or it entered a period of aggressive expansion, boom. Okay? Some other things, men began to be drafted at 17/18 years old. All right, they hadn't done that before. Men had to serve for a minimum of 10 years in the military. Okay, before that it was like 2-3 years. Okay. If you want to give examples of the aggressiveness, of the savagery of the Roman military, okay, you can talk about how Carthage was, they took it apart brick by brick, and then they threw salt on the land so nothing could ever grow again. Okay, or in the city of Corinth, when they resisted them, they took every male over 12 years old and killed them, and then sold every woman and child into slavery. Okay, that's what you get for standing up to us. All right, so they became pretty brutal after the Punic Wars. All right, you don't need to give the examples. Just telling me that they were aggressive and brutal, all right, is more than enough. Okay. Now, like I said, unfortunately, I don't have time to ask about the Republic, but I did write it down there for you. Okay, what begins to happen is that the poor in Rome, in the Roman Empire, Republic, they begin to lose their land, and so they turn to the army, to the generals for help. Okay, those generals now, because they have these little private loyal armies, okay, we enter a period of civil war, and you do need to know who comes out on top. Good old JC, the other JC. Okay, so you should know that it was Julius Caesar who ends up winning. Okay, and he becomes the first dictator. All right, and like I said, I wrote that down for you right there. Okay. Now, they turn to the military for help, okay? Generals now have their private armies. Civil war, Julius Caesar wins. Who was the first emperor? Because it wasn't Julius Caesar. Octavian. I will accept 2 answers. Either Octavian or Augustus, okay? His name was Octavian, and then when he became emperor, he changed it to Augustus. All right. If you just put Caesar, because he was known as Caesar Augustus. If you just put Caesar, I'm gonna say no, because like every emperor was known as Caesar. Okay. So either Octavian or Augustus. Either one of those will get you the credit. Okay. I didn't ask you to learn any Latin for this, except for this one phrase. You should be able to tell me what Pax Romana means. What does it translate into?
Roman peace.
Roman peace. Yeah, it's right there. Those of you that went to Catholic school, you better damn well know. All right. So, they make you learn a little Latin still, right? Anyone who went to? No. Angelina's like, no, I didn't have to. Well, what's happened to Catholic education? Damn it, no. So Pax Romana, Roman peace. If you don't remember that, if you tell me at least it was the golden age of Rome, I'll give you partial credit. But that's the only Latin phrase I'm asking you to. I didn't even ask you for Veni Vidi Vici, okay, which is what Julius Caesar said. No? I came, I saw, I conquered. Yeah, because he was he won at the end. And that's all he said. Veni Vidi Vici. Okay? Anyways, all right, so Pax Romana, Roman peace. Okay? Let's see. I unfortunately jumped around a little bit here, so I apologize. Okay. You should know about Roman engineering, number one. Okay? Some examples. Roman roads. Okay? You should know a couple of the things that made them special. Specifically, number one, they were paved. And number two, they were built in such a way so that water flowed away from them. Okay? Another example are aqueducts. Another example of Roman engineering. They built aqueducts, okay, which brought water from 100 miles away into the city. I don't need you to know that, yeah, there were 3 pools underneath. One of them was for the public, one of them was for drinking, and one of them was for the rich. No, you don't need to remember that. Just that they had those aqueducts. The Romans made use of arches. The basic principle of arches, you know, you can support all kinds of weight over them because of the keystone. The keystone basically balances how all the weight is distributed. And you should know, definitely, that the Romans invented modern concrete, okay? 2,000 years later, the formula that the Romans came up with is basically the same. Okay, there's a couple differences in certain materials, but for the most part, we're still using the same thing that the Romans came up with, all right, to build stuff, all right? So they invented anyone, like if you give me 2 of these, boom, you'll get full credit. Like what are some examples of Roman engineering? Their roads were paved and, you know, they used the concept of the arch. Okay, boom, all right, full credit, okay? When it became an empire, how did the structure change? Okay, where are you? There we go. Okay, it was divided into 40 provinces. Okay, a governor was appointed by the emperor, and then each governor would basically set up a council to help them run it. It was usually from the locals, all right? Who's the only person the governor answered to? Caesar, yeah, the emperor. That was it, okay? Oh, and who collected the taxes? Yeah, he set up so that, you know, we could you know make Carol Ann's taxes and things, and so then Carol Ann would go out and collect all the taxes for a certain area, a certain spot. Okay, so 40 provinces with an appointed governor. The governors would appoint their own councils, you know, to help them run it, and private tax collection. All right. Now, this isn't actually in one of the slides, so I'm going to go past the Roman arches and the pictures and whatnot. But what were some of the, because remember it was the Romans that came up with the idea of citizenship. What were some of the perks of Roman citizenship? Travel. You could travel wherever you wanted to go, okay? I can write these up for you too, as you say them. So number 1, you could travel freely. Non-citizens could not. Vote. Okay. Non-citizens could not. Very good. There's a couple more.
You could appeal, like your...
Yeah, okay, yes. If you were convicted of a crime as a citizen, you could appeal that conviction. Okay? Non-citizens couldn't. Yes, okay, you're free from abuse. Okay? If a soldier or a military person or an official, whatever, they didn't really have police back then, but a police started to arrest you, to beat you, to whatever, you could just say, I'm a citizen, and they were obligated to stop. Okay? So you were free from abuse. All right? Now, later on, during the Golden Age, remember, free food, free oil. Although this has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about in a second. Free food, free oil, and free Bills season tickets, because I saw a couple of you wearing Bills clothes. All right, so yes, free entertainment at the Coliseum. All right, free sports competitions, free everything. Okay, so yeah, all right. If you skip down, and I apologize, I reversed these. So what did the Romans expect religiously? And I wrote it down for you. All they expected, they would allow you to worship your own thing. Okay, they didn't ask you to change that. All they asked was for you to acknowledge their gods. Okay, yeah, we worship, Baal, but, you've got Jupiter and Juno, and, you've got Mars, and, all of those. That's fine. Okay, we're cool. All right? And number two, when there were festivals, you send a representative to those festivals. Okay, so Saturnalia is coming up in about 2 weeks. All right, we need a representative from your group, Abby, and from your group, Dan, and Neil from your group. Send a representative. Okay, don't worry, there'll be plenty of food, party, wine, everyone gets drunk and gives gifts. All right, so Abby's like, I volunteer. All right, yeah, I'm there. So yeah, that's it. Okay, now, okay, obviously, like most monotheistic groups, the Jewish people refused to do that. And so because they had been conquered by the Romans, okay, so you go to the question before, the Jewish Messiah, who were they expecting to come? They wanted a military leader. They were expecting someone to, free them from Roman domination. All right? If you want to write down buff Jesus, or I don't know what you guys use, ripped, jacked. Do people still say that when you work out? Swole Jesus? I don't know. If you want to do that, make me laugh. Yes, or six-pack ab Jesus. All right, that too. All right, they were expecting a military leader. Okay, instead they got a guy who talked about, do unto others and peace and love and charity and blah, that kind of stuff. Butterflies and unicorns and all of that. Okay. Once again, you should know and should be aware that the earliest Christian writings, and not even the earliest, for like the first 500-600 years, all of them were written in what language? Greek. Okay? I've actually had people debate me saying, no, Jesus spoke English. He did not speak English. All right? I swear he did not. All right? He didn't even speak Greek. He spoke Aramaic. But the people that wrote it down, it was all written down in Greek. Okay? Now, how did Paul help Christianity to grow? Because he was the main reason why early Christianity expanded the way it did. Okay? Well, number one, he was a Roman citizen. So he had Roman privilege, which is all of this. Okay? He could travel wherever he wanted, and he did, all right, to preach, all right? He was free from abuse, so when the soldiers didn't like what he was saying and started to beat him, he could tell them to stop, and they had to. All right. He actually was arrested and convicted, and he appealed because he was a Roman citizen. All right. So then he was able to, appeal that conviction, and he was let off, and he continued to preach for another 20 years. Okay. So all of that. All right. In addition, as a Roman citizen, what language does he speak? Ooh, as a Roman citizen. Latin. He speaks Latin. So he's able to preach to Latin speakers. Okay? And yes, you're right. He speaks Aramaic because he is Jewish. All right? So he knows his own language. And then because he was part of the elite class, he was part of the upper class. He was descended from those Jewish people that went to Alexandria. Okay? He also spoke, whoever said Greek, he also spoke Greek. So who could he actually preach to? Everybody, yes. And here's where I got into a debate with someone like, Jesus only spoke Aramaic. He could only preach to Aramaic speakers. All right, someone comes up to you and starts preaching to you in a foreign language. What are you going to do?
Walk away.
You're going to walk away, yeah. Because Paul spoke 3 different languages, he was able to preach to pretty much everyone. All right, so that's one of the things that he does to help Christianity grow. Roman privilege, number 1. Number 2, he spoke 3 languages. He could talk to pretty much anyone. All right. Some of the other things. Okay. Oh, and I'm sorry. I should have just done this. All right. Because it's right there. All right. On the next slide. He is the first one to refer to Jesus as Christos or Christ. All right. Jesus never said, "Yo, dude, I'm JC." All right. No. It was just, "I'm Jesus." All right. But it's Paul who then changes. I don't want to say changes, but he changes the message. Okay. And this is part of this still. All right. So that Jesus is not just a Jewish savior who was supposed to come and, pick up a sword and lead the armies. But what kind of savior is he? He's a savior, not just spiritual, but for whom? Everybody, not just Jewish people, but everybody. And so Paul is the one who actually crafts the message that way. Okay? So, number 1, Roman privilege. Number 2, he spoke 3 languages, so he could preach to anyone. And number 3, he made the message so that it appealed to other people. Okay? If we have, once again, our token Greek here, if we have a Greek person, all right, they don't care about some Jewish dude who talked about, peace and love and do unto others, all right? But if we change it so that, no, he also wanted you to do all of these things, then yes, the message becomes more appealing. Okay? Now, we go to the final chapter. Here we go. Okay? What was the appeal of Christianity then? And this is long after Paul has died. Okay? And so any one of these 3. Okay? Number 1, you feel that you're connected to something higher, something more spiritual. Okay? So that connection with a higher world. Probably the most important one, number 2, you don't have to deal with angry, jealous, petty, pardon my Latin, asshole gods that, will come and destroy your crops at any time. Or that Zeus/Jupiter is going to, rape one of your daughters. And then Hera/Juno is going to come looking for revenge because what are you doing with my man? All right? So none of that. Okay? We're avoiding all of that. And then finally, there's hope for an afterlife. And in that afterlife, you get to spend it with this ruler of the universe, which other religion, the closest we got was, the Egyptians. They believed in the next life, but you're not going to live it with the gods. You're just going to take all your stuff with you and live another life. And, the Indians, you just transform into a new life and hopefully into a higher caste. But in this case, you actually get to live with this creator of the universe. All right? I want you to know, and you should know, that the city of Constantinople, and it should be in the name, was founded by whom? Constantine. So it's right there. Constantinople equals Constantine. Okay? You don't have to write it down. Some facts you should know about Constantine and Christianity. Number 1, he becomes Christian after having a dream before a battle, okay? Or a vision, I guess, if you want to call it, okay? In that vision, he sees something that resembles a cross, okay? Spoiler alert, he wins the battle, and he takes this as a sign that Christianity is true. So he converts to Christianity, okay? You can say that he legalized Christianity. He outlawed persecution because, yes, Christians had been persecuted up until that time. Okay? So he outlawed persecution of Christians. Okay? Sorry, the sign that he saw. Okay? He got involved by, number 1, bringing all the bishops together and telling them, all right, guys, get your act together. We need like one theology. All right, we can't be having like 20 different like versions of whatever. All right. So he got them to come up with a unified, worship. All right. If the emperor is Christian, what are the rest of the people going to do? Yeah, because, maybe you don't really believe, but you want to stay on the emperor's good side. All right. Hey, me too. Check out the cross. Yeah, all right. Yeah. No, so to stay on his good side, okay, a lot of people convert, okay? Constantine begins to use government money to build churches, okay, to build basilicas, all right? None of the other religions are getting state money for building churches. So he gave state money to build churches. He makes the church tax exempt. Christian church no longer has to pay taxes. Yay. Okay. They still don't. In the United States. In other countries, depends. But yes, they still don't. You're right. Not just Christian churches, though, like all churches. And finally, he appoints bishops as, the judges in courts and trials. Okay? So that, like, all of the judgments are now based on Christian ideas. Okay. Give me, like, 2 of those, maybe 3, you'll get the full credit. Okay? You don't have to give them all. All right? Why did Rome fall? Where are you? Fall of Rome. Okay, oh no, back one. Okay. It starts with the Germans. Remember, Germans are invited in. Okay. Eventually, the Germans begin to rebel against the Romans. Okay. Number 1. Number 2, Rome begins to undergo civil wars. So it's really hard to fight back against the Germans when you're fighting amongst yourself. All right? But what's the final blow? The Huns begin to invade Europe. They push the rest of the Germans into Roman territory and just overwhelm everything. Okay? Rome is unable to defend themselves from both the Germans and the Huns and the civil wars. Okay, so there's literally no control. All right. I didn't ask you to remember dates except for this one, 476. What is 476?
Fall of Rome.
The fall of Rome. Okay, that's when last emperor. He's thrown out a window, but when last emperor dies, okay, and that's the end of the Roman Empire. Okay, that's the only date I want you to know. Okay, now, and once again, I apologize because I did kind of skip around here. If you skip down, I think 2 or 3, where it says Byzantine, no, not Byzantine. Where are you? I thought I wrote it. There it is. If you skip down to Middle Ages, you should know that the Middle Ages is from the fall of Rome, 476, until the Renaissance. I am not going to check. I always get this bad too. All right. So however you spell Renaissance is fine. If you just want to say the 1300s, that's like right in the middle of the Renaissance, that's fine. All right. Also, so from the fall of Rome until the Renaissance, or if you want to say from 476 until the 1300s, that's called the Middle Ages. Some people refer to it as the Dark Ages. If you write Dark Ages, okay, it's not really accepted much anymore, but Middle Ages. So you should know when the Middle Ages happened. All right. Importance of Justinian. So I apologize. Go back to, okay. Why was Justinian important? Why am I testing you on him? Number 1, he basically reformed and he wrote down, yes, sorry.
What did you say the Middle Ages happened? Like 476 to what?
If you give me 1300, I'll accept that. If you say the Renaissance, that's even better, but 1300 is about the middle of the Renaissance. So he reformed and codified Roman laws. That way they'd be preserved, they wouldn't be lost like they were in the West. Okay. Number two, he built, well, not him, but he had it built, the Hagia Sophia. If you want to say, like, he built this big-ass church, okay, that's fine. If you can't spell Hagia Sophia, or you don't remember Hagia Sophia, all right? And finally, he was the last emperor who tried to bring the Roman Empire back. All right, he was able to conquer parts of Italy, a couple parts of Africa, maybe a little bit into France, but he wasn't able to hold it. Okay, so he wrote down Roman laws, codified them. Okay, traditions. 2, he had the Hagia Sophia built, and 3, last emperor to try to reunify the Roman Empire. All right. I'm going to skip over this quickly because we only have a few minutes, but good thing I wrote it down for you. Number 1, you should know that the Sogdian kingdom, all right, they were the ones that controlled all the mountain footpaths, okay? So they became very rich, charging people. All right, it's actually written down right there. Taxes and protection. They charged taxes and they provided protection, but they became very wealthy because they controlled those mountain paths along the Silk Road. You need to know that the Eastern Roman Empire was called the Byzantine Empire. They didn't call it like Rome the sequel or, some other name. It was called the Byzantine Empire. All right, even though they were Romans originally. Okay, so that's why I wrote it there. Byzantine Empire, the new name for the Eastern Roman Empire. Okay, you should understand. All right, why was Hinduism so popular? I'm not going to ask you how it was founded, but the reasons for its popularity. Number 1. Instead of giving up like all of these things, or instead of giving up, like right path, right choice, right mind, right work, what's the only thing you have to deny yourself? Me. Okay, that's it. All right. And you're doing your part. Okay, you don't have to give up all your possessions. You don't have to. No, just me. That's it. Okay. Number 1. Number 2. Okay. We're gonna, even though it's polytheistic, and most of these people believe in polytheism, we're only going to focus on 3 gods. That's it. Okay, we're going to limit it to just 3. All right. And number 3. Okay. All right. So we said we're only going to have 3 gods, but if you worship something else, if you worship Moloch, who was like an ancient god of Palestine, bring him. Moloch's a god too, because in reality, he's just a different incarnation of Vishnu, okay, the god of life. So, we have Vishnu, and he'll appear as a half man, half goat to you. He'll appear as Moloch to you. He'll appear as the great pumpkin to Carol Ann, and to Anissa, it's the magic turtle. But they're all Vishnu, all right? So you can still keep worshiping them, all right? Because they're still really just the same thing. So you could keep your own god. And then 2 more things. And like I said, you don't have to give them all, but just 1 or 2. The concept of bhakti, Hinduism, like, you really don't need the priests. The relationship is between you and these 3 gods. Yeah, the priests are there for certain ceremonies, but everything else is just between you and, either Vishnu or Shiva or Brahman, or the magic turtle, whichever incarnation you see. That's it. It's a personal relationship. All right. You just need the priests for, like I said, those special ceremonies. Nothing else. All right. Oh, and then finally, you still get to keep your social class. All right. So if you're in the high class, yes, you still get to live that life. If you're the untouchable, sorry, Abby, all right, you still have to be an untouchable. Maybe not so good for Abby, but for the people that are in those upper classes, yes, they still get to keep the Varnas. They still get to keep the caste system, okay? This one's probably the biggest reason, but still, all right? The Code of Manu, all right? All you need to know is if you want to say it's the Hindu holy book, you can say it's the Hindu holy book, okay? If you want to tell me that, it talks about, how to deal with converts, okay, yeah. But specifically, and probably the majority of the Code of Manu deals with, your duties, what you can do, what you can't do, what jobs you can have, who you can talk to, who you can associate with, who you can marry, like all of these things. And even, okay, yeah, we're supposed to give up meat completely, but like the really, really high upper class, they can have goat and chicken sometimes, okay? The low classes, sorry, no, you guys know me ever. All right, ever, okay? But yeah, so it has certain dietary restrictions, so you can just say, the Code of Manu, Hindu holy book, gives, their lifestyle requirements, tells them what they can do, can't do, depending on their social class, okay? Why was the Silk Road important to the growth of religious movements? All you really have to tell me is that missionaries used it to travel to different areas, okay? Christian missionaries used it, Jewish missionaries used it, Zoroastrian missionaries used it, and then later on, I know it wasn't part of this, but later on, Muslim missionaries used it to go back and forth and preach their message. Buddhists not only traveled along the road, and if you want to be specific here, what did Buddhist monks actually do?
They set up a shop.
Yeah, they set up monasteries where they invited people to stay and rest and, feed your camels and all this other stuff. Oh, and as long as you're here, we've got a message for you, type of thing, okay? The last three things, I wrote them down for you. You need to know that the main god of the Teotihuacan was the feathered serpent. I don't need a name because the name wasn't given to him until the Aztecs worshipped him. So just the feathered serpent. Number 2, Popol Vuh. That is the only surviving Maya text. It's called the Popol Vuh. And then finally, you need to understand the purpose of bloodletting in Maya religion. Basically, it brought you closer to the gods. It allowed you to receive their messages, okay? And I have it there for you. All right? On Friday, you will come in, you will take